Hi, Joanna. Thank you for joining us. So yeah, Paolo, you're an aerospace engineer like me,
Yes.
and you're also the co-founder of SpaceWay. Could you tell us more what SpaceWay is about?
Okay, so in a short term, Spaceway is all about igniting people curiosity towards space subjects. So we believe that every person contains within themselves an innate curiosity towards space. So what we try to do is provide tools, activities that people can explore and can develop their curiosity and skills.
Awesome. What kind of work have you done in Portugal so far?
In Portugal, currently we have done some activities that the community can join. We act on three main areas. That is the community, the activities sector, and the research and development area. So for the community, we constantly develop content that people can get in touch with, see the latest technology that it's booming in space, what's new, what's been revolutioning all these areas, and so on. So we provide information, and then we try to get people to enroll on such activities so they can put into practice the information that we provide them and provide some knowledge per se,
Yeah.
so they can establish some knowledge on those
Awesome. No, that's
concepts.
great. I mean, it's very similar to what we do here at Space. So we're all about inspiring people's interest in space, and it's so great to see another company across the channel trying to do the same stuff. Hi to Monica, thank you for joining us. And just a reminder, if you're joining us on YouTube, a very warm welcome to you guys as well. Paolo, we'll be getting underway with this talk. What are you going to be talking about today, Paolo?
Okay, so today I'll be giving a brief overview about space systems, what is a space system, and then I'll focus a bit more onto the satellites, the new space 4.0, and what these kind of technologies allowed us to achieve. And to end this presentation, I will talk a bit about the project that ourselves in Spaceway are really eager to promote, since we believe that it represents ourselves perfectly, and it's a good thing to enroll and to get experience in this segment of the
Awesome. I am really looking forward to it. Hi to Sophie Hannon, who thank you for joining us. Just a reminder to all participants that around 6 o'clock, Paolo will be doing a Q&A with you guys. So do send in your questions throughout the talk via the chat, via the Q&A or chat if you're on Zoom, or the chat if you're watching via YouTube. I hope everyone enjoys it. I'm going to sign off now. I'll be back around 6 o'clock. And I hope everyone enjoys the talk. Cool.
Okay, so good evening, everyone on this call. Thanks for your presence, guys. So I'm as we were saying, my name is Paulo Antunes. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Spaceway, and today I'll be talking a bit about space systems. So as you guys can see, this is the agenda for today's webinar. I'll talk a bit in general of space systems, and then I'll give it a closer look on the satellite part and what impact they actually have on our lives. To end this talk, I'll mention a bit about the part of education in space systems. Okay. So to start and to give a brief overview about space systems, I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think is a space system? So sometimes people think that space systems are just the vehicles that actually reach space. Well, that's not true at all. because a space system is any element that help us to achieve our space mission goal. This is every space system. It's what better characterize a space system. For instance, a ground station. The ground stations enable us to establish a communication protocol with satellites and everything, but they remain down here in Earth, although they also are part of a space system. Okay, so the important idea that needs to be retained is that every system inside of these space systems is responsible for a specific task. In this image, you can see that here are 3 space systems. One of them is the launch vehicle that allows us to achieve our orbit, our height, to escape Earth atmosphere. The other one is the satellite, and the last one that represents the control and the operation center is the ground station. So each one of these fulfills a specific goal. For instance, the launch vehicle is responsible for the transportation. The satellite is responsible to achieve the mission objectives of retrieving a specific type of data. And the ground station allows us to establish a communication protocol with Earth, so we can actually use this data. Okay, so in order to provide you guys a wider view of the elements present in a space mission, we can see in this image a full life cycle per se of these space missions. So we can think at the very beginning of a space mission. At the first stage, what we have is a team of engineers that will establish some mission concepts and deadlines, milestones, and so on. When everything is put into practice, tested, and it's reliable enough, it will be launched into space like a satellite, and will retrieve the data. When the data is retrieved, what is done is a communication protocol with ground stations so that the mission control center can receive the data, analyze it, process it, and distribute it to all the persons that are going to use it. Okay, so for a clear view of this system, I wanted you guys to look at this scheme. And there are 3 major segments present on a space system. The first one is the ground segment. The ground segment is mostly composed by a ground station and a control center, as we saw previously. The other segment is the space one. The space segment is composed by a service module, which is the rocket that allows us to achieve our height, that is composed by electrical power system, thermal control system, telemetry, tracking and control, and much more other systems. The other part of the segment system is the payload. The payload is the actual part of our vehicle that allows us to attain the data that we want to retrieve. We can consider like a satellite. So, and on the last segment that composes the space systems is the launch segment, which is composed by the launch vehicle. Okay, so now I'll give a close look on the satellite part and the new space systems. Okay, so we are on a technology revolution on the present years, and it's more than ever noticeable that things are evolving. And if we think like 20 years from now ago, some of us might have had one of these phones that you guys can see on the left side of the picture. Big one, huge phones that could only allows us to establish a phone call or some basic basic thing. Currently, nowadays, we have the top-notch technology within our pockets. Our phones allow us to establish anything that we desire within just a click, from a phone call, video call, investments. Everything is available at our phones, and this also had a major impact in the economics of space. So, in order to give you a wider view of the satellites, I just wanted to focus more on the small satellites part. So, what is considered a small satellite is any satellite below the 500 kilograms. Anything above it is falls into another class. So, this technology revolution allowed us to produce components in a much smaller dimension, which allowed us to also produce smaller satellites with the same kind of functionalities that in the previous years took huge amounts of space, of mass, and everything. Nowadays, we have mini satellites, micro satellites, nano satellites, and we can even go to femto satellites. These are really tiny ones that occupy probably just the space of a keychain. They are really small, and it's incredible how things have evolved in a such dramatic way. So, to have like a clear perspective of the transversal subsystems that are within each satellite, I wanted to present this image. So every satellite needs to contain an antenna that allow the satellite to send the signals down to Earth or to another satellite. The structure, which is a really important part of the satellite, which allows the components and the systems to remain solid and not to hang loose inside there. We also have an electrical power system that distributes the energy across all the subcomponents, the flight controller computer, the transceiver, the spectrometer, and the payload. These are just some basic subsystems within a satellite that most of the satellites contain. So, to illustrate in a more impactful way, I wanted to show you a comparison between two satellites. The one on the left is the first satellite ever launched, which is the Sputnik 1, and on the right side we have the Tempest-D, which is one of the latest satellites launched by NASA. So, regarding the Sputnik 1, it was a really simple satellite that weighed more or less 83 kilograms at a power of 1 watt, and its payload was focused on the communication system. This was launched into LEO orbit, which is around 580 kilometers from the Earth's surface, and its mission objective was just to send a beep down to Earth. What we wanted to improve would be to show that we could establish a link connection between the satellite and the Earth, so we could make more elaborate communications. So on the right side, we have one of the latest satellites produced by NASA, which is the Tempest-D, which is way smaller. We can see that it is around 1 cubic meter. It weighs 1.23 kilograms and the power of 6.5 watts. Its payload was not focused on the communication system, rather than it was focused on the monitorization. It was launched into the same orbit, which is LEO, and the mission objective is to observe the evolution of clouds and to understand the conditions that trigger the precipitation. So we can see that the algorithms, types of analysis that need to be made on the photos taken are much more complex, and it's incredible how we could reduce the space of the satellite, of the everything, in such a tremendous way. And to end, I would like also to mention the lifetime. On the first satellite, we had a lifetime of 21 days. This was mostly restrained due to battery lifetime. Currently, we have satellites that are able to maintain themselves for 5 years. It is really incredible. Okay, so this we are able to see more than clearly that there is a rise of these kind of satellites, the small sats. And one of the aspects that boosted this rise of the satellites was the commercial off-the-shelf components. These components can be purchased by any person, with some constraints, obviously, but depending on the needs of the customer, we can choose different components that allows us to improve the development velocity and also decrease the development costs of a product. Since if we are going to produce something from nothing, we need to arrange a qualified team of engineers and certify that product that is going to space. If we have already one product that is developed, something that is made and just ready to be assembled, it will be a much more clean and easy way to develop a satellite. So since these satellites also have a reduced space, they could be coupled into the same launch, so they can share the space that previously, on some years ago, it could only take like 2-3 satellites tops, and now it can take multiple small satellites, which the cost of the launch is divided, and it is quite considerable on the budget of the project, since the launch is one of the major costs present in here. So as we can see on the image on the right part of the slide, it is a clear trend that these satellites will be taking a huge part on the space sector. The last part, the last advantage that is triggering this evolution is the performance. So currently we have multiple satellites launched into orbit. So what we have, rather than just one satellite, we have a constellation of satellites, and that allows us to have redundancy. So we don't need to fix ourselves in the data received from one satellite. We can confirm the data with another satellites, and that is a really major improvement that we have on this era. Plus, we have a higher frequency, so we have the rate of that the satellites pass on the same spot around the Earth is in a much more frequent way, rather than just having one. Imagine a constellation of 24 satellites can provide you images in a much more frequent way than just one. Okay, so the additional major advantage of these small satellites is the part of the standardization. These kinds of satellites are revolutioning the space sector, and the concept of CubeSat, which is also present on the Tempest-T, which is the satellite that I was just talking about from NASA, is a standardized model. This is a huge deal, since we also have these standardized components. These CubeSats are based on units of 1 cubic meter that are up to 1.3 kilograms. So we can see this almost like a Lego thing. since we can assemble them in the way that we take most advantage from these satellites. And if we need to incorporate any additional parts, we just add an additional standard of these CubeSats. It is outstanding. Okay, so now to focus a bit more on the impact that they have currently on our lives, I wanted to talk about network connection. So one of the major drivers for the impact on our lives is the fact that we currently have satellite constellations at lower orbits. The next step for the network connection is the 5G, which will boost in a tremendous way our lives and the services that we can take from this network connection. One fundamental aspect is the high bandwidth and low latency that allows us to perform in a much efficient way rather than previously. So this improvement will affect some functionalities that currently we already have, like virtual reality, augmented reality, and so on. The fact is, since we don't have a low latency, the connection is not so fast that we can actually enjoy the full functionality as a whole. So with 5G, the virtual reality experience will allow us to have like a telepresence. This can be used for work, universities, hospitals, and it will represent the feeling of sitting right side by side with a person that is across the globe. So it's incredible. One of the major aspects that this type of network connection will improve is the mission critical communication. This will provide a much more reliability for this segment, which is the mission critical things. For example, the police department, the fireman department, and so on. They can use this type of technologies and have the data in a much faster way. One of the last parts that I wanted to focus regarding the 5G is the self-driving cars. This will also be improved due to smart cities, smart buildings, and this is basically the application of Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things is a very wide topic that can range from agriculture to telemedicine and healthcare. But the important concept that I want you guys to retain from Internet of Things is that this technology is based on a system with interrelated devices. So the devices are pretty much all connected, and they allow data to be transferred between themselves without the interaction of human to human or human to machine. So the systems can take smarter decisions and will save people time and effort, and this will also be have a huge impact in our economy and society. Okay, so another major impact that these type of satellites have on our lives is, of course, the Earth observation. I wanted to show you guys these two pictures. These two pictures are taken from a company which is Planet Labs. Not sure if everyone is aware of this company, but they intend to make aerospace more agile. So they engineer the whole hardware and software that they use and possess the world's largest constellation of Earth imaging satellites. This is so efficient that can be used to predict some catastrophes and the detection of other events. For example, on the right side of the screen, we can see an image taken by this company that shows a deadly volcano volcanic tsunami that struck Indonesia, and they were able to transmit this information to the authorities so they could act and warn the population and avoid major catastrophe. On the left side, we can see an image that was taken pretty recently, I think a couple weeks ago, during some protests in the United States of America. And it's incredible how clear the image can be seen, and they just get this data in a really short amount of time. Okay, so not everything is good with evolution. Some things are left behind and not taken in such a high priority. And one of them is the debris that is being generated with the amount of satellites that is being launched into space. So, although this type of missions are really hard to conceive, it's a really tedious process and time-consuming project to arrange everything and set the launch and make satellites work up there. But it is a way way more difficult project to get these satellites down to Earth. And that's why we have so much debris around Earth. Although in LEO orbit, this is a much more frequent thing than we can imagine. LEO orbit is currently extremely dense. This is a major problem for the collision. There is a syndrome that is being quite taken into consideration, which is the Kessler syndrome, that is a collision cascading. So when we start to having collisions, those will affect the trajectories of another satellites and create more collisions. So what we have in here is a huge problem, since we need to improve our propulsion systems of the satellite in order to adjust their trajectory, avoiding such collisions. And this will require additional effort from scientists and engineers in order to develop these algorithms for the trajectory. So there are some studies being developed, and currently we have around 5,000 satellites that revolve around Earth, and only about 40% of them are in operation. So around 2,000 satellites are operating. So there are about 3,000 satellites that are just hanging in there, useless, and that probably won't be retrieved so fast down to Earth. Okay, so another issue is the astronomy light pollution. Okay, so there appears to be an issue in here, but what I wanted to talk with you is this type of light pollution that can be seen on the night sky. Currently, we came across the several launches of the Starlink constellation made by SpaceX, and those can be seen clearly at the naked eye. Currently, they are orbiting about 350 kilometers from Earth, and they already have a really clear view at the naked eye for ourselves. On the right side of the screen, we can see a photo taken from the telescope Arizona, where this type of satellites make these white lines that sometimes cover the stars. And this is a major issue for astronomers once they are worried that they probably will lose some important observations due to the light emitted by these objects. Okay, so there we there we have it. Probably most of you guys are aware of this this type of satellites passing the night sky. Okay, so to end this presentation, I would like to talk a bit about the space systems in the education segment. So, best way to attain knowledge is to put concepts into practice. Although it seems sometimes quite complex that these concepts can be put by ourselves into practice, if we make some simplifications, we can simulate a space system and actually plan our mission. What I wanted to say is like, if we replace the actual rocket for amateur rocketry, the satellite, we can build a CanSat, which is a really small satellite that can be established and assembled for around 200 euros, so, more or less. And the ground stations, we can have an amateur radio ground station, and this will also fulfill our mission goals. Wanted to talk a bit the World CanSat Rocketry competition, since I feel that this represents a really strong resemblance with SpaceWay mission, which is to bring hands-on activities to the all space enthusiasts, so they can compete themselves and share knowledge across each other, so both can grow and understand a bit more and grow their curiosity towards others. So this competition provides some training kits with CanSats and other type of satellites in order to enhance the assembly capacities of the participants. This promotes the interaction between themselves and also the sharing of experience. This competition will also be having a series of workshop sessions that will be provided by qualified companies in order to share some fundamental concepts that participants can apply to their satellite. And this is a competition that will be held at the national, continental, and international level, depending on the phase that you can join. So this is a full life cycle project. This competition allows you to have a wider perspective that sometimes is not quite possible at the aerospace industry, since the projects are so expensive and such a long-term project that most of the times the people that start the project are not the ones that finish it. So these small projects are good in that aspect. So in this competition, we are able to establish some mission objectives that we want to accomplish. We will make the design for the satellite, the integration, and the testing strategy in order to assure that every main functionality of this project is achieved. And to end, we will the World Rocketry competition will launch these satellites, and the data will be received by ground station, and then the results will be shown and the data will be analyzed. And that's it about the World CanSat Rocketry competition. I just wanted to leave some last remarks that I wanted you guys to return from this presentation. The first one is regarding the space systems. So a space system is not just the things that go into space. Keep in mind that things that are down in Earth also allows us to achieve the goals of this mission. We also have small satellites. I wanted you guys to remember in the future that these type of satellites are here to revolutionize the space segment, and they are here to stay. And these satellites play a huge role in our society, as we saw with the advantages that were presented. And for the people that are eager to attain more knowledge and are everyday learners, the best way to understand something is to put it into practice. And that's it for me. Thanks for your time, guys, and stay curious.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paulo, for such an incredible presentation.
Thanks.
I thoroughly enjoyed that and learned so much. I hope everyone watching enjoyed that, whether you're watching on Zoom or YouTube. We actually have a question in for you from Steve on YouTube, and he's asking, what are the key areas of space systems that the Portuguese space industry is contributing to or taking a leadership role in?
Well, currently, that I'm aware, I don't think that Portugal is taking the lead on some space systems. But projects that I'm aware, I think that there are some companies that are participating in projects of ground stations. And there are other companies that are acting on the launch segment, like providing, developing some systems for launchers built by European Space Agency and so on. That's some over.
That's great. I mean, so it's having more of a subcontractor role rather than. No, that's great. That's great. And it's good to know that SpaceWay are doing so much to continue igniting that curiosity within young minds in Portugal, and hopefully one day even across the world. Just a reminder to everyone, please do keep sending in your questions. We're going to try and get through as many as we can. But first, I had a question for you, Paulo, I myself am very, very interested in space generally in education. So what kind of innovative activities, I know you mentioned the World CanSat Rocketry competition.
Yes.
How do you think, and in what types of competitions can we ignite curiosity?
So I think that this type of competitions are really healthy for the community. So because most of the people are eager to learn, to get some information, but when it comes to applying that information, it's a much more effortful task for just a person. For instance, if for myself, I'm eager to learn about a launch vehicle. It's good, but if I don't have a long-term prospect to apply it, for instance, to launch a CanSat, it's a bit of a shot in the dark. You never know if it will represent something in the medium near future. So to have like this type of competitions, we can ally these amateur rocketry segments and these CanSat segments and ally them with each other so they can cooperate and achieve a higher goal.
Awesome. And with SpaceWay, do you think, do you have a specific age group you're looking at, or is it literally anyone?
Yeah, we currently act on multiple ages, so we really like to interact with kids and everything. We already took place in some school activities that schools reach us, and they are really eager to have us there because kids look at us like a role model per se. It's just that sometimes it's not that common to see an aerospace engineer, and so when you have like a dream and you want to achieve it, it's better to have like a person that you can talk to and ask some of your fears, some of your ideas, and see if those ideas match yours or if they are totally apart. What road they did, what things they made that allowed them to achieve that end. Because when I was a kid, I actually myself doubt a bit about it. When you say I want to be aerospace engineer, you always think of an astronaut or something like that. But there are many parts that aerospace engineer can perform in our industry.
Definitely, yeah. And it's great you mentioned that, because youngsters who might be in their teen years, who are looking to go into engineering and not interested in space, for example, would think aerospace is the only way to go, but it's not. And there's so many different types of engineering, or different types of degrees or career paths they can choose to be part of the space industry. Yeah. And you showed that amazingly when you were going through the space systems, like how you have the different segments. You have the ground station, you have on the extreme end, you have the astronauts who actually go up into the ISS, but you have such big teams working here on the ground that young minds, young people are just not aware of. So even if you do chemical engineering, I still know so many people who don't link that with space, and it's so important, especially if we're looking at propulsion. You need chemical engineers there to look at the fuel. Yeah. But no, it's really credit to you for doing all of that stuff. What message would you have to someone who is a teenager, maybe going into, I know in the UK it's higher education when they're between 17 and 18 years old. In Portugal, it might be slightly different. What message would you have for them if they're interested in the space industry, or they watched SpaceX's launch a couple of weeks ago, and they're really interested in space but don't know how to get involved, or are a little bit unsure? What message would you have for them?
Yeah, I think that the major factor that made me achieve this part in my life is to keep me curious. So I think that maintaining our curiosity is really important. Always to keep asking questions, and not just to give everything for certain. When someone says that, well, the sky is red, and you probably are not singing that way, you are singing another perspective. Some people feel afraid to ask those questions because they think that probably that person knows more than them, but that's the way to go. Just keep asking questions, keep doing your research, and try to learn a bit every day regarding the space sector. Just some news that come out, some part that keep you interested, and eventually there is a boring road for some people, which is the mathematics, the physics, and everything that enable all this to come true.
I wouldn't call that boring.
yeah, I know. As myself, I'm a huge fan of math, but I'm aware that some kids are not going so much in that direction, which I'm a bit sad, and I try to encourage them to go, because I think that probably what misses in them is the part of the role model that taught them those concepts. So if you see the person that teaches you in a higher standard, and you see, well, I want to be like him when I reach his age, and you will be more eager to understand those concepts. If it is a person that gives no interest to what he's saying or teaching, probably you won't give any interest either, and that's one of the problems, I think.
Yeah, no, it's definitely important as people who are involved in the industry to show the passion that we have, and we need to make sure we get it across to everyone who might be interested in the space industry, because these are the people we are going to be working with in the industry in 10, 15 years time. But no, a great thought there, to keep asking questions and keep doing your research, keep reading little by little every day to enhance your space knowledge. Just one final question we'll end on is, what the future of SpaceWay now? Like, what is your long-term aim? What do you want to achieve? Along with, of course, George, who was supposed to join us tonight. I know you guys are the co-founders of SpaceWay. What's your long-term aim?
Yeah, we at the long term, we aim to be a private space agency. So currently, our projects are becoming our funding system, our activities. We try to organize activities, and every penny that we can gather from those activities, we are saving it in order to invest it in research and development projects. So we have some proposals from some partnerships regarding the Internet of Things, technology, and CanSat satellites projects, in more focus on the payload side. And it is pretty much it. We try to gather every penny that we can, so we can develop a good project, so we can show our worth and become relevant part of the space sector, not only in Portugal, but worldwide.
Awesome. I definitely wish you the very best of luck with that. And I'm sure Space Store will want to help out in any way they can to achieve those goals. Yeah. Just one thing we were talking about earlier just sprung to mind there was with these competitions, such as the CanSat competition that we have for younger engineers or students who are in school or university. Do you think there will be a point in the future where there will be a competition and the winners might actually get to have a part of the payload?
Yeah, definitely. That's the basic idea, I think, that will be implemented in such events as a hackathon. So if you show your worth with some basic technology, you probably can develop the same technology in a certified hardware. So if you show your worth with 200 euros hardware, you are able to show your worth with a 5,000, 10,000. And if you have the technology nowadays, you are pretty much able to make yourself towards a launch that you don't have to pay. You just have to enroll on a call, and you can place your CubeSat or your small satellites in a platform. And since satellites nowadays decrease in size in such a tremendous way, because previously we saw that probably it was just 1 or 2 satellites that we could get up there with the launch, and now there are thousands of satellites that we can launch with just one rocket, and that decreases in a considerable way the launch cost, since it is divided. And I think that it will trigger the curiosity of students towards this subject if private companies started to promote this type of initiatives near universities and schools, so that youngsters could apply their programming skills, their math skills, and everything into this type of activities. Because I think that independent of the sector that we have, we always look up into the sky and see something that we would like to achieve, because to reach space is like, at least for me, it is like the final goal, and it's an outstanding experience.
That's great. I do hope that more private companies do take up the initiative, and companies like SpaceWay and Space Store can give them a hand in helping the next generation of engineers and young minds be a part of it. But that's great. I don't think we have any more questions on YouTube or Zoom. I do hope everyone has really enjoyed tonight's talk with Paulo. Once again, thank you so much for such an incredible talk.
Thank you too, guys, for arranging this webinar.
Awesome. So just a reminder to everyone watching, We'll be back next Thursday, same time, same place at 5:30 with the CEO and founder of Space Store. So I'll see you at 5:30 next week. Stay tuned on our social media channels for updates on that talk. Make sure you register for it, or you can watch it via our YouTube channel. Please do remember to like, subscribe, and share this video if you enjoyed it. And we'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Paulo, and
Thanks.
I hope you guys have a good night.
Cheers.
All right, take care, everyone.